For what purpose does the gentleman from Kentucky seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House suspend the rules and pass the bill S-160.
The clerk will report the title of the bill.
Senate 160, an act to amend the Wildfire Suppression Aircraft Transfer Act of 1996 to reauthorize the sale by the Department of Defense of aircraft and parts for wildfire suppression purposes and for other purposes.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from Kentucky, Mr. Comer, and the gentleman from Massachusetts, Mr. Lynch, each will control 20 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Kentucky.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous material on this measure.
Without objection.
I yield myself such time as I may consume. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm happy to support Senate Bill 160, the Aerial Firefighting Enhancement Act. This bill will amend the Wildfire Suppression Aircraft Transfer Act of 1996 to allow the Department of Defense to once again sell excess aircraft and aircraft parts for wildfire suppression. This will help facilitate the acquisition of excess military aircraft for the aerial wildfire suppression fleet. This life-saving authority protects our aerial firefighters and brings in revenue from military aircraft that are not needed. In fact, the Congressional Budget Office anticipates this legislation will reduce government spending. Our brave first responders work tirelessly on the front lines, fighting wildfires that continue to get more dangerous every year. This bipartisan common sense bill gives these brave men and women access to more equipment that is critical in an emergency. I want to thank Senators Tim Sheehy and Martin Heinrich for introducing this important legislation, which passed the Senate unanimously in April. I also want to thank Representative Dan Newhouse for introducing the House Companion Bill and leading the charge in this chamber. I encourage my colleagues to once again support Senate Bill 160. I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Good afternoon, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of Senate 160, the Aerial Firefighter Enhancement Act. This bill amends the Wildfire Suppression Aircraft Transfer Act of 1996 to reauthorize the sale of aircraft and parts by the Defense Department for wildfire suppression for 10 years. This bill reauthorizes the Secretary of Defense to sell excess Department of Defense aircraft and aircraft parts which are acceptable for commercial sale to persons or entities that contract with the government for the delivery of fire retardants or water by air to suppress wildfires. The aircraft and parts could only be used for fire suppression. This bill will help the U.S. suppress wildfires and recognizes the unfortunate reality that fire season is now year-round, and additional resources, including aircraft, are required to effectively suppress catastrophic wildfires. Senate 160 is a bipartisan common-sense bill that will help the United States maintain a robust fleet of wildfire suppression aircraft. I urge all of my colleagues to support this bill, and I reserve the balance of our time.
The gentleman reserves. For what purpose does the gentleman from Kentucky is recognized? Excuse me.
Mr. Speaker, I have no further speakers and am prepared to close.
Reserves. The gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I urge passage of the Aerial Firefighter Enhancement Act, and I yield back the balance of our time.
Someone yields back.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I urge my colleagues to support this important legislation which will protect our brave aerial firefighters across the country. I yield back the balance of my time.
The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass Senate 160? Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, 2/3 being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended, the bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. For what purpose does the gentleman from Kentucky seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House suspend the rules and pass the bill H.R. 3490 as amended.
The clerk will report the title of the bill.
H.R. 3490, a bill to require the Government Accountability Office to produce a report on esophageal cancer and for other purposes.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from Kentucky, Mr. Comer, and the gentleman from Massachusetts, Mr. Lynch, each will control 20 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Kentucky.
Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous material on this measure.
Without objection,
I yield myself such time as I may consume.
recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The House of Representatives has lost a true statesman. Jerry Connolly was a father, a husband, friend, and a lifelong public servant that dedicated his life to his constituents, his community, and his country. I was deeply saddened to hear about his sudden passing. From the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors to 16 years in the U.S. House of Representatives, Jerry Connolly was a devoted public servant for Virginia's 11th Congressional District. In Congress, Jerry Connolly was a friend to many of us. He was steadfast in fighting for what he believed in. But he was always committed to bipartisanship where he thought we could agree. Over his tenure on this committee, I'm proud to say we co-sponsored 8 bills together, including the Mail Traffic Deaths Reporting Act, the FedRAMP Authorization Act, and the Federal AI Governance and Transparency Act. And I know I'm not alone in that. Many of my Republican committee colleagues found Jerry Connolly to be a partner and a friend. I would like to extend my condolences to his family and also to the members of his staff. We lost our colleague after a short but courageous fight against esophageal cancer, one of the deadliest and fastest growing cancer diagnoses among Americans today. The symptoms of this cancer are often overlooked or misdiagnosed, leading to late detection and limited treatment options. Through this legislation, we hope to raise awareness about esophageal cancer to improve the odds for those who contract this disease. I'm proud to have joined Ranking Member Jerry Connolly in co-sponsoring the Gerald E. Connolly Esophageal Cancer Awareness Act and look forward to working with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle on its passage into law. I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. For what purpose? Excuse me, the gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd also like to thank the majority for their courtesy in moving this bill expeditiously to the floor. The Esophageal Cancer Awareness Act was introduced by our dear friend, the late ranking member, Jerry Connolly, and by a bipartisan and unanimous vote of our committee, the bill was renamed in his honor. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge Jerry's wife, Smitty, and his daughter, Caitlin Rose, who are in the gallery, along with many of Jerry's staff, current and former staff, to witness the debate on this bill. Our ranking member, Mr. Connolly, lived his life serving others and making our country a better place. He was a steadfast advocate of the disadvantaged and the voiceless, and he stood up for what was right and what was just. Jerry was a skilled statesman, an accomplished legislator, and a fierce defender of democracy. I'm sure he would want everyone here to continue fighting like hell to stand up for those who cannot stand up for themselves, to defend the rights of every American, and bring accountability and transparency to power. Esophageal cancer is the fastest increasing cancer among American men. It's also one of the deadliest. This bill would direct the GAO to report on key issues relating to esophageal cancer, including the federal spending for it under the Federal Employee Health Benefit Program and the screening rates among high-risk individuals within that program. This bill will hopefully offer some significant amount of help in the fight against esophageal cancer. Mr. Connolly was the epitome of a public servant and will be deeply missed. It is our job now to continue this fight in his memory. I reserve the balance of our time.
The gentleman reserves. The chair reminds members not to refer to persons in the gallery. The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Reserve.
Gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
At this time, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to yield time to the gentleman from California, Mr. Garcia, for his remarks.
The gentleman is recognized. How much time?
As much time as he would consume.
Gentleman's recognized.
Thank you, sir. And I want to, of course, thank our acting ranking member for his leadership here and to honor our incredible ranking member. Mr. Speaker, I strongly support this bill, which, of course, supports our fight against cancer and to improve health care for all federal workers. There is really, at this moment, this is such an important way to honor the legacy of our colleague, our ranking member, Gerald Connolly. Now, Jerry was a dedicated public servant, a fighter, and a mentor to all of us on the Oversight Committee. Jerry worked to hold our government accountable for over 30 years and was dedicated to improving the lives of all Americans. He was a champion of our federal workforce, of transparency, and in making government work for all the people that we serve. He believed in the power of Congress and in fighting tirelessly for the constituents that he served and, of course, for the rule of law and our Constitution. Now, he serves as the county executive where he fought to expand affordable housing and to invest in infrastructure and always supporting public workers. He delivered for his community, he delivered for the country, and he left a proud legacy. Now, Jerry represented the best among us in public service, which is why we're strongly support of this bill. We all will miss him greatly, and I know that every single member of our committee will work to carry on his legacy. We urge every member to honor Jerry by supporting this bill, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields. Gentleman, Massachusetts is recognized.
I urge all of our members to support this bill, and I yield back the balance of our time.
Gentleman yields. Gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I have no further speakers and am prepared to close. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I urge my colleagues to support this bill honoring the legacy of our friend and colleague, Jerry Connolly. I hope that this legislation can shed some light on the impact of esophageal cancer on federal government public servants. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields. The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill H.R. 3490 as amended? Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, 2/3 being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended, the bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Will receive a message.
Mr. Speaker, a message from the President of the United States.
Mr. Speaker,
Madam Secretary.
I am directed by the President of the United States to deliver to the House of Representatives a message in writing.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I move to suspend the rules and pass the bill H.R. 1642, the Connecting Small Business with Career and Technical Education Graduates Act of 2025.
The clerk will report the title of the bill.
Union Calendar Number 25, H.R. 1642, a bill to amend the Small Business Act to include requirements relating to graduates of career and technical education programs for small business development centers and women's business centers and for other purposes.
Legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Williams, and the gentleman from Kentucky, Mr. McGarvey, each will control 20 minutes. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Texas.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and exclude extraneous material on the bill.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today in strong support of my bill, H.R. 1642, the Connecting Small Business with Career and Technical Education Graduates Act of 2025. Early this year, I introduced this bill alongside my friend, Representative Olszewski, from the great state of Maryland. Across America, the skilled labor shortage, particularly in trades, is growing concern, and industries like construction, healthcare, and manufacturing are struggling to find qualified workers. At the same time, thousands of career and technical education graduates are entering the workforce with the hands-on skills employers desperately need. This bipartisan legislation offers a common-sense solution H.R. 1642 requires the Small Business Administration's resource partners to provide small businesses with vital information on how to hire graduates of career and technical education programs. In addition, it ensures that students and graduates of these programs know about the business counseling resources available through SBA resource partners to help them start and grow their own small businesses. Solving the skilled workforce shortage will take an all-hands-on-deck approach, and I'm proud to lead this important step forward. I want to thank Representative Olszewski for joining me in introducing this bipartisan bill, and I urge my colleagues to support H.R. 1642. I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am pleased to be here today as we consider bills that will strengthen the SBA and work to broaden services available to small businesses. These firms employ roughly half of the private workforce, create 2/3 of all new jobs, and generate almost half of our nation's economic activity. But these aren't just statistics. They are the foundation of our local economies, providing essential services from plumbers and electricians to physicians, and making towns and cities across the country attractive places to live and work. And they don't just work on their own behalf. They create millions of neighborhood jobs and reinvest in their local communities, from funding Little League teams to engaging in philanthropy. Over the past 4 years under the Biden administration, we saw a surge in startups as over 21 million new small businesses were created, the vast majority of which were created by women, including women of color. These acts of hope for the future make our economy stronger and give us reason to celebrate. Unfortunately, the past few months have caused extreme uncertainty in the small business community. And with so many new businesses starting, there is much more we could do on Capitol Hill to support their growth and flourishing. That's why I'm pleased we are here to consider 7 bipartisan bills that aim to strengthen SBA services, restore trust and accountability, and expand resources for disabled entrepreneurs. Turning to our first bill. While college affords opportunity for so many of our students, it isn't the only path to success. For students that are looking for in-demand skills that prepare them directly for the workforce, career and technical education programs can offer viable alternatives. These programs collaborate directly with local private sector businesses and tailor curriculum to the needs of the community. At a time when newly graduated students are seeing higher unemployment rates than the broader labor force, small businesses that rely on certain skills are still unable to find qualified workers. By directing small business development centers and women's business centers to provide educational information to small businesses about career and technical education programs, this bill will go a long way in meeting the labor needs of small businesses and also giving the graduates of CTE programs the tools they need to launch and grow their own successful startups. I want to thank the chairman, Mr. Williams, for his work, Mr. Olszewski, Mr. Bresnahan, and Mr. Tran for their work on this bipartisan bill. I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I urge my colleagues to support H.R. 1642 to bring necessary solutions to all small businesses. And with that, I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield to the gentleman from California, Mr. Tran, for 3 minutes.
The gentleman yields. The gentleman from California is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today in support of H.R. 1642, the Connecting Small Business with Career and Technical Education Graduates Act. Small businesses can't thrive if they can't access a highly qualified workforce. This legislation will help small business owners connect with graduates of vocational programs and hire employees who can help their business thrive. Talented graduates come out of vocational education programs in my district, like Coastline College in Fountain Valley, and have the skills that small business in Orange County need. This bill will help ensure graduates of career and technical education programs find good paying jobs and that they are already trained for. It is pro-small business, pro-students, pro-workforce, and pro-economic growth. It is a win for everyone. I am proud to co-lead H.R. 1642, and I want to thank my colleagues, Chairman Williams, Congressman Olszewski, and Congressman Bresnahan, for their leadership in championing this important piece of legislation. I urge my colleagues to vote yes. Thank you, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields. Gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I have no further speakers and am prepared to close.
Is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank my colleagues, Chairman Williams and Mr. Olszewski, Mr. Bresnahan and Mr. Tran for their bipartisan effort to ensure small businesses have access to the skilled workforce coming out of local career and technical education programs. For years, small businesses have raised concerns about their ability to find workers with the best skills to staff their businesses. By leveraging our small business development centers and women's business centers, we can help connect promising graduates of CTE programs to small businesses in need. Moreover, we can help those graduates start and grow their own businesses. I urge my colleagues to vote yes on H.R. 1642, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, we have no further speakers, and I'm prepared to close, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman has the right to close. Gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I urge my colleagues to support this common sense legislation, and I yield back.
The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill H.R. 1642? Those in favor say aye. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, 2/3 being in the affirmative. For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask for the yeas and nays.
The yeas and nays are requested. All those in favor of taking this vote by the yeas and nays will rise and remain standing until counted. A sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, further proceedings on this question will be postponed. For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I move to suspend the rules and pass the bill H.R. 1816, the WOSB Accountability Act.
Does the gentleman call the bill as amended?
As amended.
The clerk will report the title of the bill.
H.R. 1816, a bill to establish requirements relating to certification of small business concerns owned and controlled by women for certain purposes and for the purposes.
The gentleman from Texas, Mr. Williams, and the gentleman from Kentucky, Mr. McGarvey, each will control 20 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Texas.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and exclude extraneous material on the bill.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today in support of H.R. 1816, the WOSB Accountability Act, introduced by my good friend Representative McGarvey, Velasquez, and Representative Lalota. H.R. 1816 prohibits agencies from counting self-certified women-owned small business contractors, otherwise known as WOSBs, toward an agency's women-owned small business contracting goals. The committee has repeatedly found that programs that allow self-certification are far more susceptible to waste, fraud, and abuse. After years of hard work removing self-certification and other contracting goals, this bill is an opportunity to remove it from one of the 2 remaining statutory defined small business contracting goals. I'm proud of this committee's work to remove self-certification and other programs such as the service-disabled veteran-owned small business contractors. Now it's time to do the same with WOSB program to help ensure integrity across SBA programs. While we continue to have conversations on how to better align small business contracting goals with merit-based principles, this bill would reduce the ability of fraudsters to exploit the system that is currently in place. By mitigating the ability to defend government contracts, we help ensure the taxpayer dollars are used as intended and to help create a more level playing field between the WOSB program and other small business set-aside programs. I urge all of my colleagues to vote for H.R. 1816, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
In recent years, both SBA and Congress have directed changes to the small business contracting programs to increase accountability and ensure proper use. The Women-Owned Small Business Accountability Act will continue this work by moving the Women-Owned Small Business Program to full SBA certification. This bill is important to ensure that the Women-Owned Small Business Program works as intended and assists the companies as intended. and ultimately levels the playing field for women-owned firms competing for government contracts, as intended. The data shows that women are starting and running new small businesses, generating revenue and jobs in their communities, and growing in increasingly diverse industries. But fewer and fewer are signing up to work with the government. And again, many more are leaving. Women-owned small businesses continue to make up a strikingly small share of federal contracts, and the government continues to fail to meet the 5% goal of contracting dollars that Congress set 3 decades ago. Better leveraging the Women-Owned Small Business Program to recruit and retain more small firms strengthens the entire industrial base, promotes competition, and drives innovation. Passing this bill today will do that, and I urge all members to support it. I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At this time, I'd like to yield as much time as he may consume. Mr. LaLota from the great state of New York.
Yields. The gentleman from New York is recognized.
I'd like to thank the chairman. Mr. Speaker, the fundamental question this bill addresses is, should a federal contract intended for women go to men and fraudsters? Or should a federal contract intended for a women-owned small business actually go to women? Fortunately, even though we Republicans and Democrats disagree on a lot in this chamber, we agree that the contracts meant for women should go to women. Yet right now, under federal law, companies can simply self-certify, check a box claiming to be a women-owned small business, and still count towards the federal government's goals. That means bad actors can game the system, take contracts they don't deserve, and rob real women entrepreneurs of the opportunities meant for them. That's wrong, and that's exactly the kind of Washington loophole I'm working to close. Self-certification invites fraud. In fact, the Small Business Administration's own Inspector General has repeatedly warned about the risks of fraud under self-certification. This was especially apparent with the SBA's COVID-19 lending programs, where fraudulent self-certification led to billions of dollars in losses. That's why I'm proud to support the Women-Owned Small Business Accountability Act, a bipartisan effort that ensures contracts meant for women go to women. This legislation is straightforward, Mr. Speaker. It puts an end to the days of businesses just claiming they're women-owned without having to prove it. Under this bill, only certified and verified women-owned small businesses would count towards the federal government's contracting goals, just like it should be. It's high time we address this issue and empower women in business by ensuring the system works for them, not against them. I want to thank Ranking Member Velasquez, my fellow New Yorker, for partnering with her on this important piece of legislation. It's time we stop allowing fraudsters to steal opportunities meant for legitimate women entrepreneurs. I urge all of my colleagues to support the Women-Owned Small Business Accountability Act, and I yield back.
From Texas is recognized.
I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield to the gentlelady from the great state of New York, the distinguished ranking member of the Small Business Committee, Ms. Velasquez, for 3 minutes.
The representative from New York is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the gentleman for yielding. In 1994, Congress established a goal of awarding 5% of federal contracting dollars to women-owned small businesses. Recognizing the obstacles that female entrepreneurs face when entering and competing in the federal marketplace, Congress identified this goal as an uphill battle. 3 decades later, we can see how much of an understatement that was and how much more work has to be done. Empowering female entrepreneurs has long been a top priority of mine. In 2000, to give women-owned firms a boost and incentivize agencies to bring in more WOSB to compete for contracts, I wrote the law and created the WOSB program. Today, many women-owned firms are critical partners to federal agencies as a result of that law. Yet, the WOSB goal has only been met twice, and women-owned firms are not seeing the contracting opportunities that should accompany their level of participation in the market. We need to again provide a boost to the WOSB program and encourage more competition and success for WOSB firms. My legislation we are considering today will move more firms through the SBA certification process, so federal agencies have a larger pool of companies that can trigger WOSB competitions. It will further protect the integrity of the program. We want to ensure that women-owned firms are who they say they are, because that is who the program is designed to empower. We expect that contracting officers will have more confidence working with WOSBs, knowing that SBA has already verified them. I urge all members to support this bill, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields. The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, we have no further speakers, and I'm prepared to close, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Kentucky.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to thank Mr. Lalotta and Chairman Williams for their work on this bill, and I would like to close by thanking the ranking member, Ms. Velasquez from New York, for her leadership on this bill and her many years of work to create, strengthen, and enhance the women-owned small business program. I am pleased to support this bill and encourage all of my colleagues to do the same. I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I urge my colleagues to support this common sense legislation, and I yield back.
The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill, H.R. 1816, as amended? Those in favor, say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, 2/3 being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended, the bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I move to suspend the rules and pass the bill, H.R. 787, the Plain Language in Contracting Act, as amended.
The clerk will report the title of the bill.
H.R. 787, a bill to require plain language and the inclusion of keywords and covered notices that are clear, concise, and accessible to small business concerns and for the purposes.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Williams, and the gentleman from Kentucky, Mr. McGarvey, each will control 20 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Texas.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous material on the bill.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today in support of H.R. 787, the Plain Language in Contracting Act introduced by Representatives Lalotta, Thanedar, and Tran. The Plain Language in Contracting Act is a vital piece of legislation designed to limit the cumbersome language used in government contract solicitations. This will empower small businesses to have a greater ability to compete for valuable government contracts. The number of small businesses contracting with the government has been shrinking for years, and over the past few years, the Committee on Small Business has heard firsthand that excessive red tape and unclear government speak have made working and contracting with the government more difficult and costly for small businesses. So currently, government contract solicitations are written in an overly complex way that is difficult to navigate unless you're an attorney or contract specialist. One study found that only 3% of government contracts are written in a way that someone without a college degree could understand. Small businesses often lack the resources to hire an army of attorneys and contract specialists needed to fully understand these contracts, which creates difficulties in submitting successful bids. The wonky nature of this so-called government speak has contributed to the shocking loss of small businesses in government contracting. So H.R. 787 will finally remove this unnecessary barrier facing small businesses by forcing the government to take common sense action and write contract solicitations using simple, plain language. I urge all of my colleagues to support H.R. 787, the Plain Language in Contracting Act, and thank you, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentleman's recognized.
Thank you. I would like to thank my colleagues. In government contracting documents like requests for proposals or solicitations compound the complexity and may disincentivize firms from bidding. This bill attempts to add clarity by requiring documents to be written in a plain way, a way that helps firms more easily understand what the government is buying. Small firms should not be put off from working with the government because available opportunities are not communicated clearly. We need more small businesses to bring their talent and innovation into federal agencies, and I am hopeful that this bill will contribute to that effort. I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And at this time, I'd like to yield as much time as he may consume to Mr. Lalota from the great state of New York.
The gentleman from New York is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, America's small businesses shouldn't have to hire a lawyer to apply for and win a simple government contract. Yet that's exactly what Washington's bureaucratic process demands today. That's why I'm honored to champion the Plain Language and Contracting Act, which will reduce the burden on small businesses when trying to secure government contracts. My legislation ensures federal agencies use clear, straightforward language in solicitations, thereby removing barriers, increasing transparency, and giving small businesses a fair shot. Time and again, small business owners tell the government contracting process is so complex, they ultimately walk away. Bidding on a contract is hard enough, but when the language is challenging and understanding it requires an advanced degree, it's easy to see why. A study conducted by the Naval Postgraduate School, which analyzed 1 million DoD contracts, found less than 3% were in plain English, and most were rated difficult or very difficult to read. There's no other way to describe it. It's unacceptable. Furthermore, of the 33 million small businesses operating in America, 74,000, only 0.22%, successfully secure federal contracts. 0.22%. That's just 1 in every 446 contracts. That's all. When small businesses are shut out from opportunities because they're overwhelmed by the language, we don't just lose a bidder. We lose innovation, we lose local job creation, and oftentimes we lose a better price. The government should facilitate small businesses, not be a barrier. Federal agencies should speak in terms that are clear, consistent, and accessible to the American people. The Plain Language and Contracting Act does just that. This bill creates a level playing field and ensures every small business can compete for a government contract without needing a lawyer. I want to thank Chairman Williams and his staff and my colleagues from both sides of the aisle and the entire Small Business Committee for supporting this common sense solution. I urge all members to support the bill, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield to the gentleman from California, Mr. Tran, for 3 minutes.
The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today in support of H.R. 787, the Plain Language and Contract Act. Far too often, bureaucratic barriers and complex government jargon prevent small business owners, especially veterans and immigrant entrepreneurs, from accessing and securing federal contracting opportunities. I consistently hear from small business owners in Orange County that the main reasons they do not apply for a federal contract is that the barriers to entry are simply too high. H.R. 787 will address this barrier facing small business owners and mandate federal agencies to use clear and accessible language in their contracting opportunities. I am proud to co-lead this bill, and I want to thank Congressman Lalota from Long Island for working with me to improve the SBA and simplify the federal contracting process. Let's continue to empower local businesses and ensure that every entrepreneur has the opportunity to succeed. I urge my colleagues to vote yes on this bipartisan bill. Thank you, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields. The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We're just going to put this in really plain words, since that's what the bill does. Small businesses need to be able to understand what is happening in these contracts. Having easy to understand language will enable them to apply for these contracts, which enables them to bring their talents and their innovation to bear in our federal government. Over the last decade, small businesses have been leaving at an alarming rate, and nothing we are doing is working to reverse that trend. In fact, the number of small business vendors in the government's ecosystem has nearly been cut in half. So having this bill, a bill that makes it easier for small business owners, people who are already working around the clock to make their business successful for themselves, their communities, and their employees, now have an easier chance of applying for a contract with the federal government. I am hopeful that when this legislation is implemented, it will contribute to that goal. Again, I thank the bill's sponsors, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, we have no further speakers, and I'm prepared to close, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I urge my colleagues to support this common sense legislation, and I yield back.
The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill H.R. 787 as amended? Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, 2/3 being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended, the bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I move to suspend the rules and pass the bill H.R. 789, the Transparency and Predictability in Small Business Opportunities Act, as amended.
The clerk will report the title of the bill.
H.R. 789, a bill to require the Administrator of the Small Business Administration to issue rules for canceled covered solicitations, to amend the Small Business Act to provide assistance to small business concerns relating to certain canceled solicitations, and for other purposes.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Williams, and the gentleman from Kentucky, Mr. McGarvey, each will control 20 minutes. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Texas.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and exclude extraneous material on the bill.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today in full support of H.R. 789, the Transparency and Predictability in Small Business Opportunities Act, introduced by Representative Latimer, Alford, and Mafumi. H.R. 789 seeks to bring clarity to small business owners when solicitations for contracts are canceled. Often small businesses devote a considerable amount of time and resources in preparing these proposals for solicitations. Unfortunately, these solicitations are often canceled by agencies with no explanation provided to the businesses that have already submitted proposals. So H.R. 789 will require agencies to share with the SBA information as to why the solicitation was canceled. Moreover, this bill requires agencies to assist small businesses impacted by the canceled solicitation by identifying similar contracts to bid on. Small businesses deserve to have a full understanding of what opportunities are available to them and to know how agencies will fulfill their buying needs. So I urge my colleagues to support H.R. 789. Thank you, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you. I would like to thank my colleagues, Representatives Latimer, Alford, and Mfume, for their work on this important legislation. Prior to this administration, government contracts provided small businesses with stability and predictability. The government was considered a reliable partner that could be trusted to keep its word and pay its bills. Yet even before the chaos of the Trump administration, there were times when requirements legitimately changed and something the government intended to buy or do was no longer necessary. In those previously rare instances, the government then canceled the solicitation, and any small business working on a bid unfortunately lost all the time and money they'd invested in the proposal. Last year, a small business owner testified that it cost him an average of $10,000 per proposal, and if that solicitation was later canceled, the government did not have to provide him with any assistance or even any information. This bill will change that. While we cannot make small businesses whole, we can make sure they are given additional information and assistance to help them adjust their operations and plans moving forward, and hopefully to continue their participation in the federal market. I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield to the gentleman from New York, Mr. Latimer, for 3 minutes.
The gentleman from New York is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. McGarvey. I want to recognize the colleagues who have joined in leading this bill, Congressman Alford of Missouri, Congressman Mfumi of Maryland, and Congresswoman Goodlander of New Hampshire. I appreciate the opportunity to work together and to highlight why this important legislation is needed. Small business owners are often resource constrained. Every day, these individuals play the role of salesman, compliance officer, marketing professional, and more, juggling a variety of business-related activities to support their business. When a small business owner submits a proposal excuse me, to work with the federal government, they invest considerable time and resources into making their submission the best it can be. They are also forced to navigate a complex and time-consuming contracting process while balancing their other important responsibilities. Last year, the Small Business Committee heard testimony from a small business owner that said that solicitation proposals can cost a small business upwards of $10,000 worth of labor to draft, develop, review, and execute. With that in mind, it can be rightfully frustrating for a small business owner if a federal agency decides to cancel a solicitation without transparency into why that decision has been made. Without insight into how the decision was made, it can feel as though their hard work and considerable investment to submit a proposal was made in vain. If we're serious about bringing more small businesses into federal contracting, we must ensure that business owners have confidence and trust in their federal partners. This bipartisan bill, the Transparency and Predictability in Small Business Opportunities Act, would improve accountability in the federal contracting process for small businesses. The bill would require SBA to issue rules requiring that when an agency cancels a solicitation, they must share a justification for why they are canceling the solicitation and provide information about any plans to reissue it. If an agency does not plan to reissue the solicitation, the bill would create procedures for a small business to receive assistance in identifying similar contracting opportunities. This bill passed the Small Business Committee unanimously in March and passed the House by voice vote last Congress. It is a bipartisan and common sense solution to help our small businesses more successfully navigate the federal contracting process. I urge all my colleagues here to support this important bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields. The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I reserve.
The gentleman reserves.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At this time, I would like to yield as much time as he may consume Mr. Alford from the great state of Missouri.
The gentleman from Missouri is recognized.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for our friend from Kentucky. Mr. Speaker, I rise today in strong support of H.R. 789, the Transparency and Predictability in Small Business Opportunity Act. You know, small businesses aren't just part of our economy, they are our economy, Mr. Speaker. They are the innovators. They are the job creators. They are the backbone of our communities and the heartbeat of Main Street America. But far too often, as we've seen, they've been overlooked. They've been underserved and, frankly, undermined by the very government they pay taxes to support. Federal agencies are simply not doing enough to open the doors for small businesses to compete. And, Mr. Speaker, this must change. To do that, I'm proud to co-lead this bipartisan bill because supporting our small businesses should never be a Republican nor Democrat issue. It is an American issue, Mr. Speaker. Here's what's happening. When a federal agency determines they have a need for certain products or services, that agency's acquisition personnel will post a solicitation on the federal government's sam.gov website for a contract to fill the requirements. That solicitation lays out what the agency wants to buy, how it evaluates the bids, and when responses are due. And in good faith, small businesses dedicate precious time and money and resources, sometimes thousands of dollars, to just submit these proposals. Too often they are met with silence, confusion, or outright cancellation of the solicitation without any explanation. That's not just inefficient. That's unfair. Agencies right now have broad discretion to cancel or amend solicitations without any transparency whatsoever. A small business can go all in on a contract proposal only to watch it vanish like that with no reason given. That's unacceptable. H.R. 789 brings much-needed transparency and accountability to this process. It requires agencies to disclose why a solicitation was canceled because our small businesses deserve to know. Additionally, our bill requires a federal agency's Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization to help small businesses find additional opportunities if a solicitation on which they made an offer is canceled, so that they can go after those opportunities. Small businesses create most of the new jobs in this country. And in fact, in Missouri's 4th Congressional District and in rural communities across America, they are the lifeline. They are the fabric of our communities. But time and time again, they are squeezed out by overregulation, ignored by the bureaucracy. They are pushed aside in favor of corporations with high-paid consultants and armies of lobbyists. That is wrong. And by passing H.R. 789, we take a concrete step towards restoring fairness in federal contracting and rebuilding the relationship between our government and the small businesses it's supposed to serve. I thank Congressman Latimer and Congressman Mfume for their partnership on this legislation. I also applaud Small Business Committee Chairman Roger Williams for his leadership in putting Main Street America first. I urge my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to support the Transparency and Predictability in Small Business Opportunity Act. I yield back the balance of my time. Thank you.
The gentleman yields. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have no further speakers and am prepared to close.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, we have no further speakers, and I'm prepared to close.
The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We know that providing a little more predictability and stability will help reduce the barriers that keep small businesses from bidding on and winning government projects. That's what this bill will do. I would like to thank again Mr. Latimer and Mr. Alford for their work to bring this to the floor today and to increase transparency and accountability for our small business government contractors. I urge my colleagues to support it as well, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you, sir. The gentleman yields. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I urge my colleagues to support this common sense legislation, and I yield back.
Thank you, sir. The gentleman yields. The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill H.R. 789 as amended? Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, 2/3 being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended. The bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I move to suspend the rules and pass the bill H.R. 1804, the 7A Loan Agent Oversight Act.
Thank you, sir. The clerk will report the title of the bill.
Union Calendar Number 22, H.R. 1804, a bill to amend the Small Business Act to require a report on 7A agents and for other purposes.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Williams, and the gentleman from Kentucky, Mr. McGarvey, each will control 20 minutes. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Texas.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and exclude the extraneous material on the bill.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today in support of H.R. 1804, the 7A Loan Agent Oversight Act, introduced by Representatives Muser and McIver. H.R. 1804 is an important piece of legislation that brings an additional layer of transparency in the fight against fraud in the Small Business Administration's flagship 7A loan program. This bill would require the SBA's oversight of credit risk management and submit annual reports to Congress on the 7A loan program. The reports would include the number and dollar value of fraudulent loans associated with loan agents. The SBA already collects information on annual reporting requirement, would allow for more effective oversight. Similar versions of this bill have passed on the House floor, which bipartisan support in both the 117th and the 118th Congress. I look forward to seeing the Senate take swift action on this bill, which supports President Trump's agenda to root out fraud and abuse. I urge my colleagues to support H.R. 1804, and thank you, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves his time. Distinguished gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of H.R. 1804, the 7A Loan Agent Oversight Act. The 7A loan program is the SBA's largest traditional lending program, providing access to capital for small businesses that cannot find it elsewhere. In fiscal year 2024, SBA approved more than 70,000 loans totaling more than $31 billion. Loan agents are an integral part of the 7A lending program, helping to facilitate access to capital for small businesses by connecting borrowers with SBA lenders or by offering other products. As of 2020, these agents helped facilitate 11% of the loans administered. Unfortunately, some dishonest loan agents can contribute to fraud, casting a stain on the SBA's largest lending program and ultimately hurting borrowers and lenders alike. As SBA increases its reliance on loan agents, it is essential that the agency have proper oversight into their involvement to minimize fraud. This will ensure that competent and honest agents can help screen borrowers, prepare forms, and better reach communities that need the capital most. That's why this bill is so essential. The 7A Loan Agent Transparency Act would require SBA to establish a registration system that collects data on 7A loan agents to better track and evaluate the performance of loans for each individual agent. I want to thank Mr. Muser and Ms. McIver for their bipartisan collaboration on this bill. I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves his time. Distinguished Chairman from Texas is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And at this time, I would like to yield as much time as he may consume to Mr. Muser from the great state of Pennsylvania.
Gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank our chairman, Chairman Williams, for his continued leadership. Mr. Speaker, I rise today in support of my bill, along with my colleague, Democrat member, Ms. McIver, H.R. 1804, the 7A Loan Agent Oversight Act, which provides the Small Business Administration with the oversight capabilities to monitor its flagship loan program responsibly. This bipartisan legislation requires the SBA Office of Credit Risk Management to report on fraudulent loans made by a loan agent, as well as the overall default rate on loans issued by those agents. Loan agents are often the middlemen between the SBA, a 7A lender, and a small business. This legislation is necessary due to the increased role of loan agents in facilitating 7A loans to American small businesses. The SBA Inspector General reported that nearly 1 out of every 7 loans involved a loan agent. Unfortunately, the Inspector General also noted that there has been more than $335 million in documented loan agent fraud. This, of course, needs to be corrected and changed, Mr. Speaker. Additionally, my legislation requires the SBA to submit their findings to Congress, which allows us to conduct proper oversight of the 7A loan program, ensuring it remains a successful public-private partnership that helps small businesses thrive. Though Administrator Loeffler is bringing a lot to this office and has reined in the Biden administration's weakening, frankly, of underwriting standards in the 7A program, this bill advances good governance policies that will protect taxpayer dollars and uphold the program's record of success well beyond the next 4 years. I urge the passage of my bill, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves his time. Gentleman from Texas.
I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves the balance of his time. Gentleman from Kentucky.
Mr. Speaker, I yield to the gentlelady from New Jersey, Ms. McIver, for 3 minutes.
Gentlewoman from New Jersey is recognized for 3 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today in support of H.R. 1804, common sense bipartisanship legislation that I am proud to co-lead with my colleague, Congressman Mr. Muser, to bring better oversight and real accountability to one of the Small Business Administration's most important loan programs, 7A. Look, small business owners aren't asking for easy. They're asking for a fair shake and a real shot. That is what the 7A loan program is supposed to do. Help turn grit and a good idea into a successful business. This program is the reason that someone with a solid plan or a good business, big but without a big investor or family money, can still open up shop. When small business owners step up with a vision, a diner on the corner, a new chapter for the family plumbing business, a pet supply store, it's on the government to make sure the tools we have to support them actually work. But right now, they don't. There hasn't been sufficient oversight of this program, and that means we haven't been doing all that we can to protect small business owners from fraud. Over the last decade, there has been more than $335 million in documented loan agent fraud. That's why this bill matters. It tackles this problem in 2 ways. First, it creates accountability for loan agents by making sure that the people who connect businesses to resources don't operate in the dark. Second, by requiring information on loan performance, default rates, and risk analysts, it gives Congress the data we need to do our jobs, making sure the 7A program works as intended and protecting small business owners. It is on us to make sure that the programs we use to support small businesses actually work and work honestly. Ensuring 7A loans work is important because the program is a lifeline. It is a way to make sure that when people go to apply for a loan, they are walking into a fair process, not a rigged one. Whether it's the mom in Newark who wants to open up a store, or the first-generation American in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania, who wants to bring a taste of home to town. Small businesses create good jobs. They give back. They reinvest, and they show us what is possible in our communities. H.R. 1804, our 7A Loan Agent Oversight Act, is a smart, targeted fix and will help make sure that small business owners' dreams stay attainable. Once again, I'd like to thank my colleague for co-leading this bill with me. I'd like to thank our ranking member and our chairman for their support. I urge my colleagues to support this bill. With that, I yield.
Gentleman from New Jersey, from Kentucky.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I reserve.
Gentleman reserves this time. Gentleman from Texas.
Mr. Speaker, we have no further speakers, and I'm prepared to close and reserve the balance of my time.
Thank you very much. Gentleman will choose to close. The gentleman from Kentucky.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank my colleagues, Mr. Muser and Ms. McIver, for working together in a bipartisan way on behalf of strengthening the SBA's flagship 7A loan program. For too long, a few bad actors have damaged one of the most successful small business capital access programs in the federal government. By giving the SBA the tools and authority it needs, we can root out bad behavior and minimize fraud without punishing loan agents that are acting in good faith on behalf of their clients and helping small businesses access the capital they need to grow. I urge my colleagues to vote yes on H.R. 1804, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Kentucky yields back his time. The gentleman from Texas.
Reserve.
Sir, this is his time has expired.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I urge my colleagues to support this common sense legislation, and I yield back.
The distinguished gentleman from Texas yields back his time. All time is yielded. The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill H.R. 1804? Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, I didn't hear what he said. In the opinion of the chair, 2/3 being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended. What purpose does the gentleman from Texas rise?
I ask for the yeas and nays.
The yeas and nays are requested. All those in favor of taking this vote by the yeas and nays will rise and remain standing until counted. A sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20. Further proceedings on this question will be postponed. If I could grab that. Thank you. For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I move to suspend the rules and pass the bill H.R. 1634, the Think Differently About Disability Employment Act, as amended.
Clerk will report the title of the bill.
H.R. 1634, a bill to provide for a memorandum of understanding between the Small Business Administration and the National Council on Disability to increase employment opportunities for individuals with disabilities and for the purposes.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Williams, and the gentleman from Kentucky, Mr. McGravy, will each control 20 minutes. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Texas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous material on the bill.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today in full support of H.R. 1634, the Think Differently About Disability Act, Employment Act, introduced by Representatives Stauber and Simon. I'd like to thank my colleagues for their collaboration on this important legislation, which aims to break down barriers and provide greater opportunities for individuals with disabilities nationwide. Far too many individuals with disabilities continue to face systematic challenges when trying to enter the workforce or start a small business. As Congress, we have a responsibility to recognize their talents and create opportunities that empower them to succeed. The bill takes a simple, practical step toward directing the SBA to work directly with the National Council on Disability, and together they will coordinate efforts to help individuals with disabilities pursue entrepreneurship, secure employment with small business, and overcome accessibility challenges. This will help ensure that individuals with disabilities have access to business counseling through existing SBA programs like the Small Business Development Centers. Importantly, H.R. 1634 is a common-sense, no-cost solution that provide individuals with disabilities more opportunities to succeed on Main Street and start their own small business. So I urge my colleagues to support this bipartisan effort, and I thank you, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves his time. The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman's recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of H.R. 1634, the Think Differently About Disability Employment Act. Although we have made considerable progress on bringing people with disabilities into the workforce, the numbers reveal how far we still have to go. Only 23% of the over 44 million individuals living with a disability are employed. This is not because they lack the skills or the willingness to work, but often because they face persistent structural barriers, such as discrimination, limited flexibility in the workplace, and inadequate transportation options, among others. While small firms employ half the private sector workforce, they may face challenges of their own, such as outdated infrastructure or uncertainty about accommodations. But helping small firms hire people with disabilities can directly benefit their company and in turn boost the overall economy. This bipartisan bill requires the SBA collaborate with the National Council on Disability to help employers hire more people with disabilities and provided much needed support to these entrepreneurs. I want to thank Mr. Stauber, Ms. Simon, Mr. Alford, and Mr. Pappas for their bipartisan collaboration on this bill. I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves his time. The gentleman from Texas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And at this time, I'd like to yield as much time as he may consume to Mr. Stauber from the great state of Minnesota.
The gentleman from Minnesota is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, before I begin, I want to thank both my Republican and Democrat colleagues for their kind words. They are both spot on, and I couldn't be more proud to stand here and support this bill. I rise today in strong support of my bill, the Think Differently About Disability Employment Act. I want to begin by thanking my colleagues from California, Missouri, New Hampshire, Representative Simon, Alford, and Pappas for their support of this important legislation. As a father to a young man with Down syndrome, I have seen firsthand just how much untapped talent exists within the disability community. Unfortunately, outdated systems and perceptions still keep far too many of these individuals on the sidelines in our economy. That's just unfair, and it's a missed opportunity for American growth and innovation, and depriving our economy of their incredible contributions. The Think Differently About Disability Employment Act takes a critical step forward towards breaking down these barriers. This bill directs the Small Business Administration and the National Council on Disability to collaborate in providing resources and assistance to individuals with disabilities who want to start their own business or find meaningful employment. And it also ensures that small businesses have the guidance they need to hire and support employees with disabilities. Through this bill, we're ensuring that individuals with disabilities can turn their ambitions into reality, whether that means starting a company or securing meaningful work. At the same time, we're helping small businesses tap into a skilled and motivated workforce by offering them the guidance to do so confidently. Individuals with disabilities should not be overlooked. They should be empowered. And I urge my colleagues to support this legislation so that every American, regardless of their ability, has the opportunity to contribute, succeed, and thrive in this great nation. And I yield back.
Gentleman from Texas reserves his time. The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield to the gentlelady from California, Ms. Simon, for 3 minutes.
The gentlewoman is recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Congressman McGarvey. And thank you, Congressmember Mr. Starber. I am so excited to work with you so closely in my time in Congress to advance the opportunities for folks with disabilities in this country. It is just a deep honor for you and I to continue our path for representing Americans with disabilities. As the first congenitally blind person to serve in the United States Congress, I'm honored to rise today in support of this bipartisan bill with Representative Starber, the Think Differently About Disability Employment Act. You know, as a community organizer and leader for over 20 years, I focused on finding jobs and opportunities for low-income folks in the Bay Area in California, and I came to Congress to bring those communities with me, particularly the disability community, a community that I belong to. The disability community is too often left out of policy conversations, and we today are bringing our brothers and sisters and siblings to the table. Right now, the unemployment rate for people with intellectual, physical, developmental disabilities remains alarmingly high in this country, ashamingly at 80%. Yes, 80%. This, we know, is unacceptable. We can close the disability employment gap, not only to advance independence, dignity, freedom for Americans with disabilities, but to drive economic growth. This bill, my bill, our bill, creates an essential partnership between the Small Business Administration and the National Council on Disability to help individuals with disability pursue self-employment, dignity, launch small businesses, and thrive in the workforce. I strongly urge my colleagues to support this bill and build an economy that works for all of us. Mr. Speaker, I am so honored to say we can move this forward today. I would like again to thank Representative Starber for advocating for your son and millions of folks with disabilities in this country to have their just due and to support me in this legislation moving forward. Finally, Chair, I would like to thank Mr. Williams, Ranking Member Velasquez for their efforts in moving this bill forward, and I will yield back. Thank you, sir.
The gentleman from Kentucky reserves his time.
I reserve.
The gentleman from Texas.
Mr. Speaker, we have no further speakers, and I'm prepared to close.
The gentleman reserves his time. The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized for his close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to start by thanking my colleagues, Mr. Stauber for sharing his story, for advocating on behalf of his son and so many Americans with disabilities, for Ms. Simon for her passion, her work in this area, for Mr. Alford and Mr. Pappas for their bipartisan work on improving entrepreneurship and employment opportunities for people with disabilities. Thank you. Every individual, no matter their disability, deserves a shot at participating in our economy and getting that shot at the American dream. Whether it's getting a job at a local small business or launching their own startup, this bill directs the SBA and the National Council on Disability to collaborate on ways to help individuals with disabilities do just that. By passing this bill, we can start clearing the structural barriers faced by people with disabilities while growing the economy and helping small business owners. I urge my colleagues to vote yes on H.R. 1634, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Kentucky yields back his time. The gentleman from Texas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I urge my colleagues to support this common sense legislation, and I yield back.
The gentleman from Texas yields back. All time is yielded. The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill H.R. 1634 as amended? Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, 2/3 being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended. The bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. For what purpose does the distinguished gentleman from Texas seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I move to suspend the rules and pass the bill H.R. 1621, the Entrepreneurs with Disabilities Reporting Act of 2025, as amended.
Clerk will report the title of the bill.
H.R. 1621, a bill to require the Administrator of the Small Business Administration to submit to Congress a report on the entrepreneurial challenges facing entrepreneurs with a disability and for other purposes.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Williams, and the gentleman from Kentucky, Mr. McGarvey, will each control 20 minutes. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Texas.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and exclude extraneous material on the bill.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentleman's recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of H.R. 1621, the Entrepreneurs with Disabilities Reporting Act of 2025, introduced by Representatives McGarvey and Stauber. This legislation requires the SBA to report to Congress on the challenges facing individuals with disabilities and what resources or programs the SBA provides to assist them. The report will also include legislative recommendations to address those challenges. America is the land of opportunity, meaning anyone can and should be able to engage in entrepreneurship regardless of whether they have a disability. This bipartisan legislation will assess the challenges that individuals with disabilities encounter when starting a small business and identify whether and how government policies may exacerbate these challenges. I thank Representatives McGarvey and Stauber for their leadership on this important issue and for introducing this bill, and I urge a yes vote on the bill, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves his time. The gentleman from Kentucky.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentleman's recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of my bill, H.R. 1621, the Entrepreneurs with Disabilities Reporting Act of 2025. As vice-ranking member of the House Small Business Committee, I'm proud to partner with Congressman Stauber, who's done incredible work in this area, to support Americans with disabilities and help ensure every American has the same opportunity to become a successful entrepreneur. This is, after all, the fundamental promise of the American dream, that any person in this country can work hard, take risks, and hopefully find success. But Americans with disabilities, like other underprivileged groups, see fewer opportunities to make their entrepreneurial dream a reality. There are 44 million people with disabilities in the United States. In my home state of Kentucky, approximately 18% of people have a disability. Yet people with disabilities make up just 6% of our nation's small business owners. We have to change that. Far too often, entrepreneurs with disabilities encounter significant barriers, both physical and intangible, when starting their own business, including having a harder time getting bank loans and startup investments, inadequate support services, and insufficient outreach from federal programs. We know this is just the tip of the iceberg and that more barriers exist. Today, nearly 2 million small businesses are owned by people with disabilities, but there could be so many more. Here's how. By improving the public programs that serve differently abled individuals and implementing policies that make work and entrepreneurship more accessible, accommodations, tackling ableism, the list goes on. And to pull this off, our bill would require SBA to conduct a comprehensive study of the resources that are available to entrepreneurs with disabilities, examine their effectiveness, and determine what actions need to be taken to help support these entrepreneurs. By conducting this report, SBA will have the opportunity to revisit the effectiveness of their programs to ensure our government better serves people with disabilities who want to start their own small business. This bill came together in a way that I think the founders might have envisioned. Last Congress, the Small Business Committee heard from my constituent, Cody Clark, a small business owner, disability rights advocate, and I think the only person who's ever performed a magic trick in front of our committee. He testified on the challenges that entrepreneurs with disabilities face based on his experience as an entrepreneur with autism, and this bill was born from his insight and experience. I encourage all of my colleagues to join me in supporting this critical legislation for Cody and for every other American with their own entrepreneurial dream. I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves his time. Gentleman from Texas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At this time, I would like to yield as much time as he may consume to Mr. Stauber from the great state of Minnesota.
Gentleman, Mr. Stauber is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to speak in favor of the Entrepreneurs with Disabilities Act of 2025. And I'd like to start by thanking my friend and colleague from Kentucky, Representative McGarvey, for introducing this bill and his hard work in getting this bill to this point. Every day, people with disabilities across our great country demonstrate resilience, innovation, and an entrepreneurial spirit. Yet, many roadblocks make entrepreneurship unnecessarily difficult. These individuals, they don't lack talent. They lack access. Access to capital, access to resources, and the support needed to turn their ideas into successful businesses. The Entrepreneurs with Disabilities Act ensures that we take a hard look at the obstacles standing in the way of aspiring entrepreneurs with disabilities. It directs the Small Business Administration to assess whether current programs are effectively serving these individuals and to identify where improvements are needed. If we are serious about fostering economic growth and opportunity, we cannot leave behind the millions of great Americans with disabilities who want to contribute, they want to innovate, and they want to build something of their own. Removing these obstacles isn't just the right thing to do, it's a smart investment in economic growth. Entrepreneurs with disabilities bring creativity and they bring drive. We should be clearing the path and not blocking it. And you know, Mr. Speaker, today's a fly-in day for the House of Representatives. This conversation between Chairman Williams, Mr. McGarvey, and the leadership of Ranking Member Velasquez, it won't get the headlines. Because this doesn't sell, apparently, to the news media. We in this country, as Democrats and Republicans, have more in common than we do different. And today, we're letting the American people know that. Chairman Williams has done a tremendous job in the small business, allowing members to bring ideas and legislation that is bipartisan. And Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you for your hard work and allowing us to do that. And Ranking Member Velasquez allowing us to do that. Mr. McGarvey for managing the floor today. This is who we are. And Mr. McGarvey, or Mr. Chairman, I'd like to point out, Mr. McGarvey said this is the way the Founding Fathers would want it. I totally agree with that. One of his constituents brought the concern, and it took us a little while to get there, but we got there. Mr. Chair, in a bipartisan fashion, we are working to remove obstacles in the way of the growth for our disability community. Mr. Speaker, I know your background. You were chosen, just like me and millions of other parents, to raise a special child that God gave us. And it's up to us now, as a country, as legislators, not to leave anybody behind. Nobody in our disability community, Mr. Chair, will ever be left behind. And you're seeing that in a bipartisan fashion. Mr. McGarvey, Ranking Member Velasquez, Chairman Williams, thank you for your leadership in allowing us to do this. Because we are helping the most vulnerable in our community. That's exactly what we should be doing. And I yield back.
The gentleman from Texas reserves his time. The gentleman from Kentucky.
Mr. Speaker, I have no further speakers and I'm prepared to close.
The gentleman is recognized to close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank my colleagues, Chairman Williams, Ranking Member Velasquez, for this incredible work, and as Mr. Stauber said, allowing us to work together in this way. I want to thank Mr. Stauber for his incredible work in this area, for his willingness to advocate for so many Americans, including his own child. That takes tremendous strength and courage. I really want to thank you for working with me specifically on this important bipartisan piece of legislation to ensure that this Congress and the SBA do right by Americans with disabilities. Entrepreneurship is the hallmark of the American dream. It is who we are, a land of opportunity for all. This bill takes a common sense, bipartisan step toward improving government services for entrepreneurs with disabilities. By requiring the SBA to assess current programs and identify challenges and barriers that entrepreneurs with disabilities face, we lay the groundwork for a better, more inclusive society and economy. Small businesses are the backbone of the American economy. And if we can make it easier for more people to start a small business, we will all benefit. I urge my colleagues to vote yes on H.R. 1621, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman's time has expired. Gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, we have no further speakers, and I am prepared to close.
The gentleman's recognized for close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I urge my colleagues to support this common sense legislation, and I yield back.
Gentlemen, all time is yielded back. All time has expired. The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill H.R. 1621 as amended? Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, 2/3 being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended, the bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. The chair lays before the House a message.
To the Congress of the United States, in accordance with Section 1012A of the Congressional Budget and Empowerment Control Act of 1974, to United States Code 683A, I herewith report 22 rescissions of budget authority totaling $9.4 billion. The proposed rescissions affect programs of the Department of State, as well as the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, the United States Agency for International Development, the United States Institute of Peace, and other international assistance programs. The details of these rescissions are set forth in the enclosed letter from the Director of the Office of Management and Budget. Signed sincerely, Donald J. Trump, the White House, May 28, 2025.
Referred to the Committee on Appropriations and ordered printed. Pursuant to Clause 12A of Rule 1, the Chair declares the House in recess until approximately 6:30 p.m. today.